Rizzo, let's go.
Welcome to the Riff Crew. I'm your host, Steve Mitchell, back for another big episode here in the realm and another special show. And of course, I'm not going to do anything special without my co-host, Skull. How you doing, mate?
Right on, man. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen in Cyberland. As you know, this is Skull broadcasting from the past, present, and future in the Chamber of the Cosmos. Here with my good friend Steve Oz. I'm an on-again, off-again DC bomb rock band Black Manta. Been in the scene for over 30 years, and I know people from all over the scene. As usual, really excited to be here. And this is a special Riff Crew episode that we did last year, which is a top 10 of 2021, top 10 of 1971, et cetera, et cetera. It was a really cool episode to do last year, so we figured we would just do it again. I thought it was a great idea when you came up with it last year, so I'm really excited to do it.
Yeah, because it's great because you know it's hard to find good music or discover new music, and obviously you're the historian, so you can school me up on all the classic stuff, and I keep my ear to the ground, so I can let you know all the great underground stuff that's coming out recently.
Yeah, and you always say pick 10. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? It's like it's almost goddamn near impossible to pick 10.
That's part of the challenge.
So, especially with there's so many artifacts and relics in the Chamber of the Cosmos. And then we were talking about, and we're gonna have to go back and we're talking about doing a special in the psychedelic period from 67 to 69. Still gonna have to do that. But we talk about how there was this explosion of music from, like 67 on. There's like different genres, different bands, and it was an eruption of different styles of music. And so when you start getting to like 70, 71, 72, it's like there's hundreds of bands. Like it's just the deeper you go, the more layers you peel, the more mysteries you solve. It's like the deeper you get, man. It's really crazy. So I mean, I have a lot of honorable mentions. A lot of these easily could have ended up in the top 10, but you can only have 10, and even there I had to
cheat
cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to do real quick though is I think there were a couple that I forgot from last time, and these will be super quick. But
what, from 1970?
From 1970, like this.
Oh, mate.
I'm
You're
going to apologize.
a year late, mate. 51 years.
I'm going to apologize. It's all a time machine anyway, so backwards, forwards, and time. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'm always going to forget someone's favorite band or why didn't you mention this or etc. So I'm already going to say that. And the prime example is that I forgot, this is like out of all the hippie bands, this is one of the most hippiest albums ever made. The Crosby, Stills and Nash and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and all that. And besides the Woodstock soundtrack, this is probably the most hippie shit you could listen to in your life, So that was one of those bands. When I was going through my collection, there was a couple that jumped out at me that was like, oh, you forgot to throw this out there. That was one of them. This next one's a huge one. When the Beatles split, George Harrison just was full of ideas that the Beatles wouldn't let him record. So it came out in this monstrous box set that had never been done before, to my knowledge. It's literally a box set, a 3-album box set called All Things Must Pass. Pretty epic. If you love the Beatles and George Harrison, the Dark Horse, his stuff was a little edgier, really, really fantastic stuff. That was one of those things that I forgot to put in there from last time. And
Yeah, he was probably my favorite of the Beatles, George
oh
Harrison.
yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing stuff, man. And it's very psychedelic, very hippie, trippy, dippy, peace, love, and all that stuff. There's, My Sweet Lord, and it's all Hare Krishna and all the stuff that he was into at the time. But these two albums here, I actually mentioned, but I couldn't find them because they got moved or shuffled around or whatever. But these were mentioned. Grand Funk Live. I just wanted to show that real quick because that was on my list last year. And Funhouse, that was on my list last year. But most importantly, I think this is an album, unfortunately, that got lost in the shuffle. And we just interviewed him, Randy Holden, Population 2. It's really important. I just wanted to mention this again. One of the most influential proto doom albums ever made, obviously, besides Sabbath. Very heavy, very doomy, very psyche, incredible, just off the charts. These guys were definitely like, coming from, they obviously were very high on something, channeling some very powerful energy on this album, musically, sonically, lyrically. Um, check out our the interview that we did with him a couple of months back. Really amazing interview, but this is one that I definitely want to get to mention. So those are from 1970. That being said, I have I have a whole pile of honorable mentions before I get to my top 10. And I'm going to go through these quick. They're actually in alphabetical order backwards because that's how I went and that's how they ended up in the pile. Um, but I'm going to get through them pretty quick. A lot of these, like I said, could easily have ended up in my top 10, but you can't have them all in there. The first one here, Zephyr, the mighty Tommy Bolin, died way too young, didn't even make the fucking 27 club. He was only 25 when he died. This was his first band before he went off into like jazz fusion Odyssey world, playing with all kinds of amazing cats like Billy Cobham, etc. And then ended up in Deep Purple and James Gang. But this was his first band. He was only like 17 or 18. Really amazing album. And Johnny Winter Live, really amazing record right there. Johnny Winter, one of the greats, albino guitar player from Texas. Him and his brother Johnny and Edgar, his brother. Uh, Wild Turkey, which is ex-members of Jethro Tull. Great album. Uh, Uriah Heep. They were incredibly prolific. They were just spitting out albums left and right. Both of these albums actually came out in 1971. Remember, folks, this is all 1971 here, and this one, believe it or not, is one of King Diamond's favorite albums, along with Captain Beyond. That'll be in 1972 next year. But this is one of King Diamond's favorite albums, and he was heavily influenced by David Byron, the singer. So this is a really amazing album. UFO 2, 1 Hour Space Rock, fucking awesome album. It's pre-Michael Schenker. Traffic, Low Sparkle High Heel Boys. Toad, very rare Swedish, I believe Swedish power trio in the vein of Cream. Really, really great stuff. Now, this is a repro. The original copy of this would be hundreds of dollars. Let's see here. Three Men Army, Third of a Lifetime. This is ex-Gun. Adrian Gervitz on guitar, Paul Gervitz on bass. Really great, more power trio stuff. Thin Lizzy's first record sounds very Hendrixy. Really great stuff. Very heavy, very Hendrixy. there's two different album covers. This is one with the chick's ass, and the other one is like of a rear view mirror on a car. I prefer this one. You know, chick's ass is not a bad thing. 10 years after, Space and Time, fucking amazing band. Alvin Lee on guitar, of course, and T-Rex, Electric Warrior. Basically, you could argue that the invention of glam rock started with this, along with David Bowie, but this really sealed it with the mega hits on here, like Bang a Gong. Mark Bolan and T-Rex, really fucking amazing album. Electric Warrior. Santana 3. Oh, Stones. It says Sticky Fingers, Rolling Stones. If you can see that, I don't know. It says Rolling Stones on it. I can't find this record. It actually has a zipper on the album. And if you put it with the rest of your records, it fucking destroys your records, like the one right in front of it. So I have it in here somewhere, but I can't find it. I don't know where it went. But Sticky Fingers, The Stones, Procol Harum, Broken Barricades, pre-Robin Trower. This is very, like, gets more guitar heavy, and it's basically dedicated to Jimi Hendrix, which was like his guitar hero, who had just recently passed away. This is really actually my favorite Procol Harum album. Fantastic. Pato, crazy, heavy rock, like jazz fusion style type stuff. Paternoster, which is, this also is these are repros. The originals are very rare, hard to find. Kind of sounds like, it's like doomy, gloomy organ church like heavy church music. I mean, it's not church music, but it's very gloomy and wild stuff. Osabisa, which is kind of like Afrobeat, as you can see of Roger Dean's incredible album cover right here, with the fucking elephant with butterfly ears, wings/ears, or wings. Elephants with butterfly wings. It's really incredible. Another one, Nazareth. I do not have this album. It's very hard to find on vinyl. I have it on CD somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I had to throw that in there because that definitely deserves to be in there. Oh, and Dan McCafferty just recently passed away. So Moses, another one-off heavy rock band. I think they're from the Netherlands or something like that. Power Trio. Once again, repro. The original would be very hard to get. This album is fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome. MC5, High Time. This is a repro. Their last album before they basically imploded. Great album. Lemmy fucking love these guys. May Blitz. The Power Trio from England. This album is incredible. The first one has the monkey on the front. I'm pretty sure I showed that last year for 1970. They made two albums. They're both amazing. You'll recognize this one right here, Steve. You know this? Can you read it?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Master's Apprentices, man. This album is fucking incredible. No bull. I'm not just saying that because you're Australian and you live in Australia. I'm not just saying that. I truly mean it. These guys were gifted. It's a crying shame. It was hard for them because they were in Australia. I think they did relocate to England. They were huge in Australia. They didn't quite make the splash in England like they wanted to. Amazing musicians. I can't say enough about these guys. Really an amazing record. Heavy as shit. Mahavishnu Orchestra. This will just fucking melt your mind and your face. This is another level of guitar playing. This guy is touched by the hand of God. And I'm being totally serious. This guy, John McLaughlin, is just like otherworldly guitar playing. He treated his body like a temple. He never smoked, never drank. He worshiped music and the guitar. This is essential. Everything I'm showing you is essential in your collection. You should have it. It should be in there right now. But, you know, I'm just going to keep going through these here. But the whole point of this is to spread the knowledge that, you know, so some cats out there might not know who these bands are. So that's why we're doing this. Leaf Found Growers and Mushrooms. They only released one album.
That was
Very rare.
yeah, that was re-released by Rise Above Relics, which is a sort of like a sub-label of Rise Above Records over there
Yeah.
on CD.
A lot of these I'm showing you are repros because a lot of them were limited run or very hard to find, or yet, you know, or only released in Germany. Like that Moses was only released in Dutch land or the Netherlands or wherever. But yeah, and that's cool that Lee is doing that kind of stuff. He's kind of bringing these artifacts, digging up these artifacts and reissuing them because the world needs to hear this stuff. And this is one. This is on an A Karma. This is an Italian reissue, but yeah, it's cool that you recognize that. Um, Carole King. This is from my brother from another mother. He fucking worships this album, so I had to put it in here. But it is it's hippie, very hippie, but a fantastic album. Just great songwriting. Um, Monster live album, Humble Pie. Everyone should have this in their collection, like most of these here. Um, Getting down here. Oh, Harry Chapter. Can't Get Through. Another reissue. Heavy German kraut guitar oriented rock. Very heavy. Great stuff. Grand Funk Survival, last album with them as a power trio. Great record. You know, they weren't the same after this. They still had some great stuff, but they weren't the same after that album. Gong, the first Gong album, total fucking freak out music. Get high and listen to this right now. And this album is like listening to elves and fairies play music, but in the most amazing way possible. Because it's more of that krautrock style stuff, which is total freakazoid music. I have this on CD, but I wanted to show it anyway. Maggot Brain. I don't have this on vinyl. That's incredibly hard to find on vinyl. I mean, I could get a reissue of it, but I have it on CD. But it's actually really an amazing album. Coliseum Live. Great freeform, heavy jazz, heavy guitar oriented type shit. Great stuff. Clem Clemson, the guy that ended up in Humble Pie on guitar, plays guitar on this. It's fantastic. Edgar Broughton Band, these guys, more freakos from England. They were kind of in the same vein as like Hawkwind, not as spacey, but heavy stuff, man. Great album. There's that bit of a mystery on this album. If you can check it out, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but look for it. It's like Where's Waldo, except for the meat version. Brain Ticket. This album looks fucking insane, right? Well, the music's insane. These kraut guys, I don't know what acid they were on, but they were really pushing the limits of music. Just wild, very spacey stuff. I think, yeah, on the back, it basically tells you to like take LSD and hash and smoke joints and go groove it on your hallucinations and all kinds of crazy shit. It's wild stuff. Boomerang, Vanilla Fudge, Mark Stein on keys and vocals. more heavy stuff. This is an original. This is actually is hard to find. And look, it's like it's the Aborigines from Australia. It's it's a wild album. You wouldn't be able to make this album cover now. It's a historical artifact. Um, this, wow, Blues Creation, Demon and 11 Children. This is a repro of a heavy as shit Japanese album. Heavy. These guys, they have heard Sabbath and they were like, we want to be Black Sabbath. This is the only album like it, but it's fantastic and heavy. Highly recommended. Um, this is an oddball. It's called Black Mass. It's actually early electronica. It's all you probably can't see, but there's a Baphomet face on here on the back. It's all kind of like satanic and imagery, and it talks about the Kabbalah and all this stuff. But there's no singing. It's all electronics. It's a very rare album and very wild. Um, we're getting down to the B's here. It's a band called Banshee. This is an original too. My friend Crazy Steve, not you, different Crazy Steve gave this record. Uh, very kind of has a Santana vibe to it, but it's really great. Um, and there's a couple, I have a few more, but I broke now a lot. I'm going to a different section of my honorable mentions, and I broke these out. These are what I would consider the more of the proto metal, the proto doom bands that a lot of more bands from the doom scene were influenced by, and also bands like Pentagram was starting to emerge at this time and was heavily influenced by all of these bands. A lot of the bands I just showed you easily could have been in this pile. I just put this pile together because I thought it was important. Some of these bands were really influential and important, but like I said, a lot of these bands easily could have been in this proto doom, proto metal honorable mentions, and I just wanted to put them in here because I thought it was important to separate them. Like, let me fix this pile right here. Like, for instance, right here, in Hearing of Atomic Rooster. It's not their heaviest album, but it's the last one with John Can on guitar. The legend is that there's a good album with all guitars on every album, but Vincent Crane was starting to get jealous of his popularity, and so took all the guitars off all the songs except for two. Those two songs, though, are amazing. It's still a really cool album. This is a real heavy hitter here. Everyone knows this album, Bang. Heavily influential band on the Doom scene, the 90s Doom scene, and a lot of the bands from the 80s, even the 80s Doom scene. Three Cats, power trio from Philly. They saw Black Sabbath. They were kids, 16, 17 years old. They saw Sabbath and were like, we want to fucking be in a band like that. And so they started Bang. Luckily, they got signed. This is a real oddball. You can see here this album actually, you find out later if you do a little digging that this was supposed to be a gatefold. This guy, there's a grave. Yeah, you can see him pointing his gun, and you can see how the gun is, the barrel's right here. So it was supposed to open, but I think they just were like they wanted to save a few bucks. Um, Black Widow, it's not super heavy, but very satanic and wild. Uh, the imagery and the lyrics come to the Sabbath. Um, in fact, there's a Black Widow record label in Italy. They got their name from this band, from this album. Um, highly recommend just to check out for just the wildness of it. There's a lot of like kind of very like ritualistic type stuff, like pagan ritualistic type stuff going on there. Um, Blood Rock came out in the same year. Blood Rock 3, Blood Rock USA. Great Texas boogie rock. Great stuff. Highly recommended. It's another heavy hitter, massive. Like I said, this easily could have been in my top 10. In fact, I think it will be just by default. But massive, hugely influential band, power trio from Wales. Um, Along with Sabbath, they were the most well-known band doing that style of music. A fantastic, incredible band. Highly recommended. All this stuff is. Bull Angus has kind of a Deep Purple vibe to it. Great stuff. Uh, Cactus. Both of these albums came out in the same year. Restrictions, one way or another. A lot of these bands were heavily influential on Pentagram, like Bang and Blood Rock and Cactus. Obviously, a lot of more of the American bands because the other bands were like imports, probably hard to find or expensive or whatever. Um, See here, Alice Cooper, heavy band, lots of wild imagery, psychedelic wild imagery, kind of like, the whole Alice Cooper persona, him being reincarnated as from a witch or something, or whatever that whole legend is about Alice Cooper. I'm not sure if you knew that, but that's why his name is Alice. He was reincarnated from a witch. Um, so the legend goes. Dust, another one of these bands that was highly influential on Pentagram at the time. This is an original, fucking amazing American power trio. They only made 2 albums. The next one will be next year. And just incredible stuff, man. Heavy, heavy, proto metal, proto doom. Another band, Fanny Adams, from your neck of the woods, from Australia. They only made 1 album. They said that they were going to be as big as Led Zeppelin, which is always the kiss of death when you say that. They're fucking awesome. This album is amazing. But they couldn't keep it together. They ended up hating each other. I think this guy, believe it or not, was originally he's on the first Bee Gees album, because the Bee Gees are Australian. And really a fantastic record. They couldn't keep it together. They broke up after 1 record, but highly recommended. Groundhogs Split. Another fantastic power trio. Highly recommended. Just great, great stuff, man. T.S. McPhee on guitar. It's called, the first side is Split Part 1, 2, and 3. It's about someone having a mental breakdown. It's pretty wild, man. Wild shit. And let's see here, Geronimo. This is a bootleg of a very rare, hard to find band. They're another power trio. Amazing, amazing record. I have a bootleg of it because it's hard to get in any format. I bought it years ago. Really, really amazing record. Another massive heavy hitter here. This is huge. The first Sir Lord Baltimore album. Another power trio. You see a theme here. But this is one of those unique bands where the drummer sings, and he has an amazing voice. They're credited with the term. Someone was reviewing this band and he called it heavy metal. This is the first album to be described as heavy metal that we know of. It's a really amazing record, heavy as shit, and really wild stuff. Heavy, heavy guitars on that. And right here, Stray, another band from England. They were all super, super young kids. Stray Suicide. This is another great one. Super heavy stuff. And I think I have a couple more honorable mentions. I forgot. These are not vinyl. I'm almost there. Almost. I'm getting there. These are not vinyl. There's some of them that I didn't have on vinyl, but I had on cassette, like Janis Joplin Pearl. I have this on cassette. It's a great album. That's 71. David Bowie Hunky Dory on cassette. Tear Gas on CD. And what else? Oh, Silver Bart. Let's see, 4 times sound raising. This album is very hard to get in any format. Nothing more crazy power trio krautrock shit. And this is rare English heavy rock. But I think that might be it for right now. That's all I have for my honorable mentions. And right now, I think you can either do your honorable mentions, or we can go right straight into the top 10.
Yeah, well, I've prepared my Cult 69 list again, which is a selection of 69 releases of 2021. I'll hold back the last 10 because we'll review those.
Okay.
But we'll kick in, and here's the other 59.
we're supposed to be under the black cloud. Across the void they came to Earth, bringing ancient eldritch ways. On a primal newborn world, they hid
Satan, to know what
As the restless clouds keep rolling in, blast from higher ground. Здесь глазка в том придумок, рот в улыбку разорвут. Здесь глазка нам нужна, только вот тебе больно. Здесь глазка, это хорошо, здесь глазка. It's a breakdown, baby, don't you say, baby. Breakdown, baby, breakdown the night. It's a breakdown, baby, don't you say, baby. Breakdown, baby, go.
And so that was the first of the 59 albums of my Cult 69 list, just closing off there with Dr. Colossus, of course, a local band here in Melbourne. And my top 10 is going to be full of Melbourne bands because I've been deep in the local scene and unearthed some pretty cool albums. But before we get into those, we're going to kick off with your first of your top 10, Skull of 1971.
Well, you know, as we said, it's more of like a top 10 slot, my top 10 slots, because it was kind of impossible for me to narrow it down just to 10. I had to cheat a little bit.
Yeah, it's like 30,
And I think
35
that people,
or something, maybe 33.
yeah,
You're a Mason, aren't you? Maybe it's 33 squeezed into 10.
I think when people see them, they'll forgive me. Um, but yeah, it's more like kind of pair them up with like maybe the style of music and if the artists have more than one album that year. Um, but yeah, like I think of what I said previously is like a lot of the bands, obviously, if you're just starting your collection, this is really a great way to kind of get an idea of like where to start, what albums you should be looking for. And if you're into the heavier style of music, just use this as a template to start your collection. It's a great way to kind of pass on that knowledge to everybody else. But some of those albums easily could have been in my top 10, but had to narrow it down. So for my first slot, I picked a couple of albums that would be considered Southern rock. Now there was no such, that didn't exist back then. Now, the notable thing about this band is that Billy Gibbons, the guitar player slash singer, had a very interesting fan. Jimi Hendrix was a huge fan of his guitar playing. And in fact, when the Experience used to play in Texas, they have local bands would open up for them or whatever. He loved Billy Gibbons so much, his style so much, and his playing, that every time they played in that area, they would always request Billy Gibbons, whatever band he was in at the time, whether it was this band or the Moving Sidewalks. But very stripped down, bare bones, amazing guitar tone, amazing production. It's just Bill Ham. He produced the album, but it's, they have the engineers here, but he was Bill Ham was the mastermind behind, in the sense that he wanted a specific sound and he got it. And this is a great start to an amazing power trio. Um, you know, Dusty Hill just passed away recently, God rest his soul, and you know, great gig in the sky. But this is the first part of my two picks for this slot. And the other one is and also, I wanted to say that these are really in no particular order except for number one. They easily could be maybe the last few, but really could be interchangeable. The next one I'm getting ready to show you is, you know, I grew up a metal kid. I was a metal kid, and so it was easy for me to crap and shit on all these bands and make fun of them and all that, which what you do when you're a kid, right? But when you go back and you listen to the mastery of the playing and just everything, the synergy, no other album exemplifies that more than this album. When you go back and you listen to it, it's quite arguably, it could be argued to be the greatest live album of all time. And it's this. There's a lot of magic going on here. I mean, music itself is magic, but the synergy, there's a lot of these bands would play like, you know, it's different now, but back then you would have to play two sets a night, and your two sets would be 2 hour sets. And so you're playing constantly, playing, getting tighter and tighter. And like, it's like almost like telepathy. You know exactly what the other guy's going to do. And this band had two fucking drummers in it. I mean, can you imagine that? Like the percussive nightmare to keep that rhythm section, you know, together in rhythm and without any screw ups or anything. But this album is arguably the greatest live album of all time. There, I don't know about any overdubs, and I won't go into any of that stuff. I don't even know if they did that stuff at the specific time when this came out or when it was recorded in 70. I believe it came out in 71, but was recorded in 70. But the musicianship is absolutely stellar. Near inhuman. I highly recommend, if you've never heard this album before, just for someone, I know you love music, just for the sake of the worship of music and to listening to it and to understand how it, you know, and it, like if a power tree, you understand that how it would be the the fewer band members, the easier it is to connect. You know, this band has 6 people in it, and it's like one unit, like one mind, one unit, one soul, and pure magic. This album is absolutely pure magic. Highly recommended for anybody out there that just wants to hear the the caliber of musicianship that was going on. I mean, I'm surrounded by it. You know, and all the bands that we looked at so far, my honorable mentions, and also my top 10. This this is this is high water mark for just caliber, magical, stellar musicianship. That's all I can say. Highly recommended, and I highly recommend you check it out. So that's my number 10 slot.
Well, that's a big call. Best live album ever. Big call.
I'm not bullshitting you, man. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Oh,
Highly recommend
yeah,
it.
I'll have to check it out then.
You will.
So I'm going to kick off my top 10 again, same as you. Is my top 10 is not in any particular order except for the number one, and we're going to start with the letter A, book for A, yet again. So here's my first album of the top 10. And that was, of course, a band called A Pale Horse Named Death. I'm not sure you've heard of that. Have you, Skull? Probably not.
What?
A Pale Horse Named Death.
The band?
Yes, the band, not the biblical reference or
No.
anything like that.
No,
I
never heard of them, man.
I didn't think so because they're post 2000, so that doesn't surprise me. Have you heard of the name Sal Abrascato? Does that ring a
That
bell?
name rings a bell.
It may ring a bell. Well, it probably the bands he was in was probably the reason why it rings a bell, because he was the original drummer of Typo Negative, and he
Mm.
played on, I think, their first 3 albums, and then he left Typo and joined Life of Agony, and he was in and out of the band over multiple decades. I think recorded 4 albums with them, all on drums. But I think 2011 was the first year he released his own band called A Pale Horse Named Death, of course, where he's singing and playing guitar. And yeah, basically, if you're a Typo fan, Alice in Chains, that kind of thing,
Oh yeah.
you'll be all over this album. I mean, it's definitely that vibe. It gets lumped into the doom scene, but it's definitely got that gothic feel to it that you
Wow,
get
very
from
exciting.
Typo. Because you go, oh, you listen to it and you go, it sounds like Typo Negative. And so
I'm a huge Typo fan, as you know.
yeah, and so this is, I believe, their 4th full length album. Just a beautifully crafted album. If you're looking for something mellow, but not too depressing, this is a very intricately put together release. Just beautifully crafted, beautifully composed. There's not a lot of, I guess, your widdly diddly leads, but there are some beautiful lead guitar work. It's more textured rather than, I'm gonna masturbate all over the fretboard and show people how good I am.
Right.
So yeah, so the album Infernum in Terra, definitely, as I said, if you're a fan of your Typo Negatives or Alice in
Oh yeah.
Chains, that sort of gothic doom, check it out. Fantastic album.
I'm proud to say that this is my biggest cheat of all. This is my prog slot, and I realized that I was gonna take them out, and I was like, I couldn't do it, so I decided to make a prog slot,
So
and
if
it consists.
is it prog? It's probably 7 vinyls and 4 tapes or something like that to match the 7/4 time, etc.
It's 4 albums, but you'll forgive me because they both of these artists they released both of these albums in the same year of 1971. So it was just crazy how prolific bands were back then. Just you know, grinding these albums out, like just not grinding them in that sense, but in the they had
Pumping them
so
out.
much. Yeah, but in the sense, like they had so much artistry, they had so much to say, they had so much in them to say, to get out, that a lot of these bands were releasing 2 albums at a time. That was very common back then. Um, and in this case, one of my favorite bands of all time. This is Pictures at Exhibition live album. Highly recommended. Nothing, I can't really say much more about this album. It's just, if you love Emerson, Lake and Palmer and you love prog, these albums, this is a masterpiece. They're both incredible. This one especially, all the way up to Brain Salad Surgery, I would say. But we're in 71, and so that's half of my pick there for my number 9 slot, and the other one. The Yes album, and Fragile came out in 1971. As you can see, the iconic album cover here done by Roger Dean, the magical Roger
Fabulous.
Dean,
Yeah.
the wizard himself. It's incredible, mind blowing. This is his first album with him, album with his incredible magical art on it. And I recently got to see them finally for their 50th anniversary of Closer to the Edge. That will be on an Electric Church episode when we get to it here shortly in the coming weeks. But these albums, there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises in here. These albums are masterpieces. They're works of art. So there's not going to be a whole lot of, there might be not a whole lot of surprises in here for my top 10 picks or my slots, because they've stood the test of time. These albums they have stood the test of time. They are crafted and created by sonic wizards, and that's what they are, man. I mean, a lot of once again, the artistry, the creativity, the imagination, the ingenuity that goes into creating these albums, and just the whole package. You know, the album, the music itself, and the lyrics, and they're all fantastical. And then, you know, the album cover itself. So that would be my number 9 slot there, Steve Oz. What do you have?
Well, I've got well, a band that it's probably the only big name band in my list. I'm sure you've heard of this one. And that was, of course, Carcass, out with their 7th full-length release entitled Torn Arteries. Can't say I've been a huge fan of Carcass over the years, but I gave this a spin, and it's just a brilliant album. It's just stunning in all aspects. It's just beautifully put together. It's, you know, it's kind of like a Giga artwork. You know, it's got beauty within the animal, or, you know, the frightening, because it's you know, it's you know, a brutally aggressive album, but it's just, you know, it's almost angelic in its production.
Great, man. It's that dichotomy, that paradox, right?
Yeah, and they just do it so well. And this is arguably the best album since Heartwork, which was released almost 30 years earlier. So, you know, for a band to bring out, you know, the best work in, you know, almost 3 decades, you know, speaks testament to their capabilities. So I think it was 8 years between that and their previous release, but it was certainly well worth the wait, because you know, I know, you know, metal circles, Bill Steer always gets a huge rap, and just the harmonies that he puts together on the guitar, and he's playing. He's just a guitar genius, really. You know, what more can you say? You know, as I said, it's the only big name in my list, so people will be familiar with what they're getting. But definitely worth the hype. Absolutely.
Yeah, Bill Steer, as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the new generation sonic wizards. He carried the torch for sure. Amazing. It's once again a band that released 2 albums in the same year. This will not be any surprise to you and anyone else out there that saw our special Great Gig in the Sky about The Great Fatsby, Leslie West. Both of these albums were released in 1971. Nantucket Sleigh Ride. It's just another amazing album. After Climbing, which had their hit on it, Mississippi Queen, just more of the same kind of fantastical, like imagery and album cover. I believe that his wife Gail did the album covers, and this is Mountain Flowers of Evil. One side is studio, the other side is live. Just great stuff, man. I mean, I've talked about his tone before. His tone is absolutely magical. Everyone should have Mountain in their collection, even if it's the greatest hits, the best of. You got to have the Great Fatsby in your collection, man. You know, Mississippi Queen is arguably one of the heaviest songs on the radio besides Paranoid. And there's a live version on here. They kind of slow it down a bit, and it's even heavier. If you can imagine that, they slow it down and make it heavier. And a 25-minute version of just a jam of like several different songs. Just great shit, man. I mean, I can never say enough good shit about these guys. You know, the Great Fatsby, Felix Popularity. I talk about that in The Great Gig in the Sky. I think you guys should, whoever, if you're into Mountain, if you're really into tone, just check out our remembrance of the great Leslie West, the Great Fatsby there. So that's my number 8 slot there, Steve.
Okay, so my next selection is, as I said, probably not a big name, but they've certainly got a lot of press in recent times. And that was Hooded Menace, out with their 6th full-length album, I believe, called The Tritonus Bell. They're a band from Finland. They get lumped in to the Death Doom, I guess, style of music or genre. Definitely because those influences is they're different to the other Death Doom bands that get tagged with that label, because their doom, it's not just slow, is that they've almost got that funeral doom harmonies or melodies that other bands don't really have, and it definitely gives a very much of a King Diamond influence. So it's almost like, if King Diamond or Merciful Fate were going to play death metal, it's what they're going to sound like. So. And it's not the King Diamond style vocals, because it's more the death metal style vocals, but it's got that beautifully woven chemistry of heaviness as well as elegance. Elegance, yeah. And so they've essentially been able to forge their own sound. I know, different media outlets have really pushed this band because. They're just fabulous at what they do, and it's nice because you put it on and then you can hear that's Hooded Menace. That their sound stands out. They don't sound like 100 other bands that get labelled Death Doom. They do their own thing, and I'd love to see this band live in the future, just to see if they cut it live as well, because they've definitely impressed me with this album.
These, see here, unfortunately, these two came out in the same year, and it's someone that we're all familiar with. We know that along with a few other people, he's someone that I happen to worship, the true sonic wizard and genius. The alien from another world, essentially, is where he's from. This is these two albums came out in the same year. Cry of Love, the year after he unfortunately had passed away, and Rainbow Bridge. This is a soundtrack to the movie, which is a real fucking hippie, psychedelic, wild ass movie. I highly recommend it.
You better love me like it's gonna be the last time, and tell the child to bury that is all wrong. Yeah, they're talking about getting together, yeah.
The last like half hour of the movie is of him playing in Hawaii in a field with like a bunch of other fucking hippies, but it's awesome as shit. Um, Highly recommend that, man. And this is unfortunately, this is what he was working on before he sadly passed away. It's called The Cry of Love. Um, it was released many years, 30, 40 years later. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was kind of, they found other stuff in the studio and retooled it and released it because he actually had written down an idea of like what he thought the album was going to be, like the song tracks and everything. So that was released years later. But after his sad, unfortunate passing, um, which I mean, when he passed away, along with Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison, that you definitely there was a huge disturbance in the force, the sonic force, because the three of the giants there, of the psychedelic counterculture movement passing away within a year of each other. It's a tragic events, um, cataclysmic. But he passed away. He had a mountain of material left over. This was supposed to be his next official release. Um, all the songs on here um, were already in the can. And I believe that it starts to get really muddy with Jimmy's releases up until the 90s, until the estate was able to gain control of all of his material, that these are official releases. And then after that, it starts to get kind of muddy where people are like, well, I have him jamming in the studio, so I'm going to release it, like unofficial, official, unofficial. You know what I mean? But these are the last two albums that were released officially before a glut of other things started to kind of like show up. Um, Once again, I can never say enough about the man. Absolute genius, lightning in a bottle, a beautiful soul. I mean, every interview I've read, every interview I've seen, everyone has a Jimi Hendrix story, just like everyone has a Lemmy story. Is that he was, unfortunately, he was overworked and he was exploited and taken advantage of, but he always was, he never talked down to anybody, he always had something positive to say about people and to try to lift people up, man. These people, they were trying to change the world, man. They were trying to change the world with their music, all of them. And we have to praise them for that, for lighting that fire, for starting the revolution. And Jimmy was there, man. He was one of the true wizards. And what else more can be said? So that's my number 7 slot there. What about you, Steve Oz? What do you have for your slot there?
Well, I'm going back deep under the underground again after maybe a few bands that people may be familiar with, because this is a band from Melbourne that I had never heard of.
When the moment comes and it's surely will, no matter how many friends at your side, so each
And that was Galaxy. And their first full-length album called "On the Shore of Life." I believe they did release an EP prior to that, and the EP they had a lineup, but it seemed to have been disbanded for this full-length, and it involves basically it's essentially a studio project from what I can gather, with Philip King on vocals and Stuart Callanan on guitar and bass. And they recruited a session drummer to play drums on this. Have you heard of the name Simon Phillips by any chance, Skull?
Yes, I have.
Well, there you go. So I've got I hadn't heard of Simon Phillips before, and I sort of was floored when I read the list of people he'd worked with, because the guy is incredible. Basically, just some of the names: Jeff Beck, Gary Moore, Michael Schenker,
Mm,
Bernie Marsden of Whitesnake, John Lord,
mm.
of course, Deep Purple, Nick Kershaw, Mike Oldfield. He played with Judas Priest. Mike Rutherford at Genesis, Tears for Fears, 10cc, who I believe are coming out to Australia next year. Pete Townsend and The Who. He was the drummer for Toto for a few years there as well. Peter Gabriel, Frank Zappa.
Wow.
He was in a band called 801 with Brian Eno, Jack
Mm.
Bruce, Joe Satriani, Steve Hackett, and someone I think you've already mentioned in your top 10 plus 700, John Anderson of Yes. So the guy is obviously the go-to drummer when it comes to sort of prog rock over the past 50
Well, he's a
years.
drummer journeyman.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's just in demand. So, you know, I know that, you know, reading the posts online, that the guys in Galaxy were absolutely stoked to stitch him up for this album. So I think the fact that, you know, Simon Phillips was keen to be involved with this, because no doubt he gets hit up by a million people with his talents. He heard their demos and thought, yeah, I want to be part of this. And yeah, just a fabulous album. It's if you remember, my number one from last year was Pentecost by Witch Hazel. Very much 70 vibes, you know, not too heavy, but it's got that hard rock and feel of, say, the mid to late 70s. Beautifully crafted songs. This Galaxy album's really in that ballpark as well. Just beautifully put together, and it's, if you're looking for something of that ilk, or of that era, or of that sound, this is a tremendous album. As I said, it appears that it's essentially a studio project at this point. I don't know if they're going to be putting together a lineup for live shows. I think they've only played a handful, if that. But yeah, definitely love to see these guys live. I understand their vocalist plays in another band called Flickcraft, who I'd like to see live. I haven't seen them live before, so yeah. So if you're looking for something of that,
Wait to check these guys out.
yeah, if you're looking for something of that 70s vibe, maybe not 71, a bit later, yeah, this is definitely going to be in your ballpark. And yeah, those Witch Hazel fans that agree with me that Witch Hazel rule, then check this out, because I don't think you'll be disappointed.
I have my number 6 slot only has one record in it.
Oh, come on. You must have
I know.
slacked
I'm
off or something.
slipping.
Yeah, the quality standards are dropping.
No surprises here. Once again, some of these could be argued. Some people would argue that this should be the number one album. But at some point it starts to become, you know, subjective. So, but any of these could be argued for the number one slot. But one,
Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. I get my back into my...
The Who, man, Who's Next? This, I mean, the 60s Who are amazing, but you could argue that this is at the height of their power. You know, the Tommy is cool, but this basically is a stripped down Tommy. There's like, you know, there's no theatrical stuff. It's just like all amazing songs. Almost every song on here is a hit or a radio song, and you know, Keith Moon is still, you know, he's still in his prime. You know, he's still Moon the Loon. You know, just like a freaking human octopus. They're firing on all Pistons. This album is incredible. I mean, um, once again, produced by Glenn Johns here. I mean, once again, another one of these albums that should absolutely be is essential. It should be in everyone's collection. It's almost like a greatest hits album. It's like, do you need greatest hits? Who? No, buy this. I mean, I have the Who's greatest hits as well, but this is a fucking basically a great. It's one of those albums that every song is incredible. Very rarely does that happen, and this is one of those albums, and it's like a fucking greatest hits album. Highly recommended. I mean, I could go down the list here. Bob O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again, Behind Blue Eyes, Going Mobile. I mean, just incredible. You want to start off your collection. Obviously, you have to start off with Jimmy and the Doors and Pink Floyd and Rush, of course, and the Who. It's one of those bands. Just has to be in your collection. Um, Highly recommended, man.
Who?
That's my number 6 pick right there.
Who?
The Who,
Sorry, I had to slip in a dad joke.
Doctor Who. Who's next? Who's on first?
I'll give you a little clue. I'm wearing the band's t-shirt right now.
Jack Harlan. I love those guys.
Yep, that's right. Jack Harlan, 2018, I think they released the first full-length album, which was Hymns. 2021, they backed it up with the Magnetic Ridge. They're obviously not a household name, but don't play radio-friendly songs. But they're definitely getting traction in the Doom circles because there's a massive yearly poll on doomcharts.com. And the first album, I think, came in at number 18. They had the best Doom album, or number 18 Doom album in 2018. And this album, Magnetic Ridge, came in at number 11. So those who do like their Doom are definitely across this band. And I'll certainly plug them at every opportunity because they are, for me, this was the number one Doom release of 2021. And it's similar to a lot of the bands, I guess, that I've already mentioned and you've mentioned, in that it's just a beautifully crafted album. It's not one-dimensional at all. The first song is primarily an acoustic song, and occasionally, gets into sort of the heavier fuzz moments. In the last song, bookends the album with clean guitars as well, and in between is that you have a range of expression in terms of the music, even within the song. So you've got everything from light caresses to just thumping hard riffs, and throughout every song is always the psychedelic vibe that they bring to the table. It's I think a memorable album because it just stands out from the crowd. It's just not the Electric Wizard sounding or the Black Sabbath sounding. They've got their own textures and their own personality coming through in the music.
It's just like all fuzz.
And you can have bands like that, and I love there are bands like that that I love, but you've got to be absolutely at the top of the tree to stand out if you're going to do something like that. Whereas if you bring your own personality to the table through the music,
Sure.
you're going to stand out, and they do that. And the main man, Tim, who, so the main man of the band is not Jack. His name's not Jack, and it's funny because I I called him up and got his voicemail messages, and he said his name's not Tim either. So he's a bit of an international man of mystery. But Tim's got a great ability to weave in those psychedelic vibes, and his phases and what other pedals that he plays with in terms of the effects with the guitars. And those guys are, I guess, like many stoner doom bands, is that you need a forklift to wheel in their pedal boards for the gigs. it's like you'll get a hernia trying to pick it up. But it's just got a wonderful feel throughout the album, and it takes you on a journey. It's not, every song sounds different. It's just not one riff rehashed throughout the whole album. So I know that they've just recently announced they're releasing their third album next year, which is going to be a collection of obscure covers. So check that out when it comes out. But in the meantime, grab yourself the Magnetic Ridge. You will not be disappointed.
My number 5 slot here is also a single album.
Oh, mate, you're slowing down in your old age.
I know, slipping here. Once again, it's not really a surprise. This album has to be in this list. I mean, just like The Who was already big, that album broke them. Like, they became superstars overnight. Same with Jethro Tull. They already had a couple of hits. When this album came out, it was all over. They were massive. They were huge. And when I say that, I'm talking about the U.S. market. Every band was trying to break the U.S. Because of many reasons. But I guess, that's where it was. That's where the action was. Everyone wanted to, you could tour the U.S. and, because it was so big and so sprawled out, people wanted to tour it. And there was a lot of money there, The kids wanted to spend their money on music. And so everyone wanted to break the American market. And that's just, when you're in a band, you're there for your craft and your music, but you also want to make a little bit of money too. I mean, you want to be able to have Mercedes Benz that you can drive into pools like Keith Moon used to do, or throw. You want to have plenty of televisions to throw out the window if you need to, like he used to do as well. But this album is amazing. Once again, another one of these albums that has like 4 or 5 hits off of it. Aqualung, Cross-Eyed Mary, Locomotive Breath, my God. I mean, and I don't have a whole lot of these. You can see here on the top, original master recording, my friend Crazy Steve, not this Crazy Steve, but a different Crazy Steve. My friend actually my copy of this album, something happened, it was completely destroyed. It was, I don't know, it was all scratched up. It just wasn't playing right. And he generously gave this to me. Once again, man, just an incredible album. It's, I mean, a lot of these albums is not going to be a whole lot of surprises. I mean, whole books have been written about some of these albums that you're going to see in his collection. But like I've mentioned, it's like they're masterpieces for a reason. They stood the test of time, just like this album. Loosely concept album about, the big questions about, man's soul and immortal soul and spirituality and all that. And also about, what is it to be a man or human being, or to be your connection with the supreme being, or what does it mean to be alive? All of those really simple and easy questions that you can wrap up in a 4-minute song. But They do it masterfully and highly recommended. Once again, this is one of those albums that is absolutely essential in your collection. If you only have one Jethro Tull album, it should be Aqualung. And that's it for my number 5 slot there, Steve. What about you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I might own Aqualung.
See?
Yeah, it's a classic.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. Well, this next one, definitely not a classic or as well known, and again a Doom album, but the complete opposite of Jack Harlan, which I just talked about. And that was the droning sounds of a band called Megalith Levitation. And this, I believe, is their second full-length album, and they are from Chelyabinsk in Russia. So the Southern Ural Mountains, if you're not familiar with the geography. I don't know too much about Chelyabinsk other than what I've learnt from a content creator named Roman, who goes by the name of No Fuckers. He's got over 1 million subscribers. He's a former resident of Chelyabinsk because he's now, I think, in Georgia. But Chelyabinsk is, I guess, a typical post-Soviet major city. I think there's 1.5 million people there, very industrial. But it seems to be the perfect breeding ground for doom metal because these guys are great. Unlike, Jack Harlan, I said, they sort of mix things up. These guys do the complete opposite. It's just the droning, repetitive, hypnotic, slow riffage. You just, it's kind of like, if you listen to Sleep and you might be stoned and it's your perfect state to listen to Sleep. This is, you've not only been smoking your spliff, but you've also taken edibles and you're on the edge of just completely passing out. It's like, it's almost another level of just,
You're in that twilight zone.
Yeah. It takes you a slightly different place. So it's not for common consumption. I don't think normies will get into this at all. They'll just not understand what's going on. But if you're a doom metal aficionado, I think this is one. If you do like the slower doom, that hypnotic, repetitive, just droning sound of guitars. I definitely recommend this. Kind of in the vein of Monolord, who released an album in 2021 as well, and a band from Sydney called Atolla. I just find I listen to this album a little bit more than those ones. As I said, quite seem to have a bit of a following in Russia. They toured Siberia this year. I know they play a lot of shows, or regularly play shows in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So my ignorance may be showing is that they may actually be one of the bigger doom bands in Russia. So check them out if doom's your thing.
This is we talked about the 27 Club, like I said, so almost like a cataclysmic disturbance in the force when all three, unfortunately, three of those, I call them the Holy Trinity, passed away within a year of each other.
A bit like the extinction of the dinosaurs, the meteorite that took out the T-Rex.
Yeah, man, it was like a part of the counterculture, like a part of the music died. But they're not dead. They're with us. They're in our hearts. They're in our, they're in whatever, in the great gig in the sky, in their spiritual realm that we can reach out to and communicate with if you're open to that, if you're open yourself up to it. But one of them is, as we were discussing, unfortunately, was Jim Morrison. He was the last of the Holy Trinity.
Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown. like a dog without a bone and
You know, this came out in 71. I believe he was still alive when this album was released, and this was he moved he moved to Paris to clear his head and to rethink his whole like rock and roll lifestyle that he was living. Shaved, he looks like fucking crazy Jesus here, a cross between Jesus and Charles Manson. He when he moved to Paris, he shaved the crazy Manson and Jesus beard. Um, but this album is incredible. Once again, it reads like a greatest hits album. You know, Riders on the Storm, Love Her Madly, LA Woman. Um, and this is special. This album, there's like a cellophane with their photograph on the cover. It's actually a rare, the original version of it, the rare edition, the rare version of it. But this album's incredible. It's a masterpiece. I'm a massive Doors fan, as you know. I, you know, I I pray to him every day, and Jimmy, you know, for guidance, for rock and roll guidance, to be a rock and roll disciple. And the Brotherhood of Orpheus, you know, you have to pray for guidance from the Holy Trinity, you know, Jim, Jimmy, and Janice. But I have all of their albums. So, I mean, this is to me, unfortunately, he passed away. There is one more official Doors album that came out years later with him reciting his poetry and then playing porn music in the background. It's like porn version of Doors. I still like it, but this is his last official one before he passes away. Um, Once again, a monster of an album it has to be in your collection. If you like the Doors, it's absolutely essential. Um, and that is we're saying goodbye to Jim and Jimmy here, but that's my number 4 pick. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, definitely a change of pace with my next pick because this was probably the best extreme metal release of 2021. And of course, that crunching sound was none other than Nun Slaughter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nun Slaughter at all. The guys have been going around, I believe, since '87. They've actually released they've had, you know, when you count up their, you know, sort of singles and splits and EPs and demos and all that, live albums, etc. They've had over 100 releases during their career, possibly even over 150, but I believe this is only their 5th full-length release during that time. So they've been quite prolific, but not in this format. And as I said, I think this is, you know, if you're looking for extreme metal, doesn't get any better than this for 2021. You know, is it death metal? Yeah, but it's a bit more than that. It's got elements maybe thrash metal. It's got elements of maybe grindcore, elements of black metal. They call it devil metal. I think it's better just to let you, yeah. I think it's better just to let your ears enjoy the music rather than pop them in a box, because it's just the kind of music that you want to put on if you want to let off some steam or aggression, or want that feeling of power that you get from this style of music. And I don't know how active the guys are on the live front. I think they're going down to South America soon, or they just have. But yeah, I'd definitely love to see these guys live one day, because their recorded material is just pummeling. It's just enjoyable to listen to for that style of music.
Yeah, once again, they played at the Maryland Death Fest a couple of times, and I have to get a shout out to my friend Demon Dave Daglieri, who was he's a DJ at WRRU. He does occasionally DJs still there, and that's his favorite band. And so he has, you said 100 plus, albums, EPs, 7 inches, whatever. He made, he took it upon himself to collect as many as he could. In fact, he actually released, he is a part of their catalog. He filmed them and he is, at one time was a manager at a Kinko's. And so he professionally released a DVD with the DVD package. He made one for me. I have it here. And I think it was only 66 copies or something like that. And so if you go to Metal Archives and you see a DVD with 60, I have one of them. But it was personalized for me, and he was a massive Nunslaughter fan. So I have to give props to a shout out to Demon Dave for that, because that's like that's his favorite band, or was his favorite band for the longest time. All right. So we are down to the last 3 slots. And this slot is, I call my space rock slot, and it actually has 2 bands in it, very important bands. The first one of the slot is Hawkwind. These guys, man, I mean, very few people in the States really knew who they were, except for the real heads, meaning the people that were really into the whole psychedelic scene. I met a few older cats. They're like, yeah, I saw them in Baltimore back in '74, like real freakos, real psychedelic wizard type people, man. You can't really make it out, but that's Stacia on the back. She one day showed up and said, I'm going to be in your band. And you can't, if you make, it's really fuzzy, but she's like 6 feet tall, and she has double D boobs, and that's her vag right there. And you can kind of make it out. And she would just show up and she would dance naked on stage. And Lemmy said, if you didn't duck, you would get knocked out by one of her gigantic, like, double D tits. But that's the kind of band, that's the kind of lunacy, that's the kind of wild energy, cosmic energy that Hawkwind used to draw to their shows. A 6 foot tall Amazon woman with double D breasted would dance like a wildcat on stage for you. Anyway, this album is fucking incredible. Lemmy is not on this. He joins the band right after this album. This is their second album, but it's incredible. It opens up, has a weird gimmick cover where the top pops open. Now I'll never be able to get it back on. It pops open. And now I'm going to have to try to get it back together. But, that was back when they made really awesome album covers to jump out at you. And that is that one. That I highly recommend that. If you're going to start, I mean, once again, I have all of Hawkwinds from that period. But that's really a great one to start with, even though Lemmy's not on it. And part of my space rock is Pink Floyd metal. Once again, is my brother from another mother. Besides Rush, Pink Floyd is his favorite band. And we're getting down to the bottom here, the last few picks. This definitely deserves to be down at the bottom, I personally believe. I just saw Nick Mace's Saucer Full of Secrets, and they played Metal is a one, I'm sorry, Echoes is a one-sided song. It's about 25 minutes long. They had 2 sets. They played about an hour, took a break, and played another hour, and they played the whole entire side. It was incredible, and they played One of These Days. really, they're slowly building up, after the loss of Sid Barrett leaving the band, kind of having to retool themselves, and it's kind of just kind of figure out like where they were headed, reorganize their thoughts and their vision of the band. You can kind of sense that this is where they're headed with Dark Side of the Moon. It's very dreamy, very spacey, of course, incredible production, but you know, and very minimal. I mean, look at the minimalism on this. Like, to me, if you're in the know, to me this looks like a krautrock album cover. Honestly, it's so minimal, and a pool of water or a puddle of it's it's very psychedelic, very cerebral. These guys were very cerebral, um, but incredible. It's one of these bands where you smoke some pot, drop the needle, and travel. Do the same thing with Hawkwind. Smoke a little weed, do whatever you do. Um, Take some hash, smoke some acid, and drop the needle and let it go, and just let it take you. Just let you just journey with it, man. Just let it. You travel with the music. You travel with the wizards, man. The magic of the music, and that's to me that's my number three slot. It definitely deserves to be at the bottom, both of them, but especially the Floyd. What about you, Steve?
Well, I surprisingly only have one thrash metal release in my top 10. So this is my pick for the best thrash album of 2021. And that was the guitar sounds and thrashing sounds of a band called Riff. These guys I don't know too much about. They formed, I believe, in 2016. This is their first full-length album. I believe they've released one EP previously. So they're still, even though they've been around, 5 or 6 years, they're still, I guess, establishing themselves. Recently toured Germany and Switzerland on a small tour. I think that's the first tour outside of the Czech Republic. If it's the number one thrash album of the year, it's going to be good, because there are other amazing ones. Here in Australia we had Hidden Intent release a great album. I think both Exodus and Testament put out albums as well in 2021. But for me, this was hands down the best thrash album.
Cool.
I just think they nailed it in terms of what I like to listen to in terms of thrash. I'm always, regardless of genre, it really comes down to the vocalist a lot in terms of their tonality. It's not necessarily whether they're great singers or not. It's just whether my ear likes them. So I like the ear of the sound of the singer. And at the same time, in terms of the actual riffage, they don't try to play too fast or too aggressive or too this or too that. They just pull out some great songs. It's fast without trying to be the fastest band in the world, kind of thing. So you just utterly impressed. If this is their first, I will look forward to their second, because this is an absolute cracking thrash metal album. And as I said, it's a band that probably got zero profile, or maybe a little profile in Europe, but definitely I believe you want to keep tabs on this band, because if this album's any sign, they're definitely going places.
That's a perfect segue into the album I have here, which is it has elements of thrash in it, and this definitely deserves to be in the bottom too. Now, this album is Deep Purple Fireball.
I wanna know where you're from, oh yeah.
A lot of people talk about in rock, and now in rock definitely deserves its place in rock history. There's some proto thrash on there, believe it or not, some really heavy songs. They really emerged as one of the original proto metal type bands. But this album kind of gets lost in the dust and forgotten about a little bit. And when you put it on, if you listen to it, the first song starts off with like double bass. So one of the first albums where you hear like the double bass is prominent. It's the shortest song on the album. You know, he's doing double bass throughout the entire song, Fireball. And of course, there's them and a fireball and a comet. They're all their heads. And that's where Lars, if you know Injustice for All with the hammer, the puss head hammer with all their faces on it, that's where Lars stole the idea from, or borrowed the idea from, is from this.
Naps did the idea from.
Yeah, I know. I know who you are, Lars. Anyway, we'll talk Metallica one day. That'll be a whole 2 hour show or longer. But my love-hate relationship with them. But this album is incredible, man. It's wow. Like we were talking about, that all of these people, they had just an eruption of creativity. They have so much music in them, so much creativity, so much to say musically, that these people, they're just so prolific, pumping out album after album of high quality music, of amazing music, of their own template, their own sound. These people are creating their own blueprints, essentially their own templates for what they want music to sound like. And this album is incredible. Highly recommended. Once again, if you're a Deep Purple fan, absolutely essential. What about you, Steve?
Well, I'm going to head back to the Melbourne scene because there's another Melbourne band that I'm intimately familiar with, which definitely had to be included in the top 10. And that was, of course, Womb to Tomb. I guess I've mentioned a number of times on the show before, previous episodes. Bit of a super group here in Melbourne, 4 extremely talented musicians. Best way to describe it, I guess, it would be, you know, if you're not familiar with the music, is if you're an At the Gates fan and maybe not satisfied with their more recent releases, because obviously their early stuff is just classic stuff. So you're looking for that sort of technical death metal without getting too proggy or, you know, too wanky, but aggressive with technicality, if you like. This is probably going to be in your ballpark, because pretty much every song is just you know, a combination of that raw aggression with you know, beautifully technical excellence, if you like. It's not just your straight up power chords or, you know, your big fat HM2 sound or anything like that. It's you know, it's that artisan crafted death metal sound that you know, occasionally bands pull off, but not as often as competently as on this album, which is the first Worm to Tomb album, Death Abroad. Just as I said, the guys are super talented. Special call out on the guitar work on this album. As I think I mentioned earlier, some bands like to, you know, or some guitarists like to show off their skills in wizardry or on the fretboard, but it doesn't really translate into you know, beautifully expressed music. with a lot of solos on this album, they've got a lot of great feeling behind them. They're just beautifully composed solos, almost memorable solos. I know, for example, I think it's Tommy from Coroner. It often gets called out in terms of having memorable solos. It kind of, similar in that regard. In that, the solos are memorable. It's not just I'm going to show how quickly I can tap on the fretboard or how many notes I can play in a second or anything like that. I mean, it's almost like with an orchestra, the violin, going about its business. It's got that artistry to it rather than just I've got really fast fingers. The only quibble I have about this album is basically side A and side B have a slightly different sound because they were recorded at different periods of time. I think they had 2 different sessions, but otherwise, as I said, if you're looking for that death metal vibe, similar to At the Gates, certainly not an At the Gates ripoff. Check out Womb to Tomb.
All right, my friend. I think we're down to number 1 here.
100, isn't
and I'm
it?
sure. Huh?
One means 100.
100. Yeah. We're down to the number 1 slot here.
Slot. Yeah.
I think, right? All right. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people out there are like, there's one album I haven't seen yet, and there's someone out there that's like, there's 2 albums I haven't seen yet, and you'd both be right. Because my number 1 slot is tied for number 1.
Surprise.
I couldn't help myself. I couldn't help myself. Because they both mean so much to me in many different ways. Like I said, a lot of these could be argued to be number 1. These albums that in my top 10 collection or here is I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Someone was like, hey, where is XYZ? And I'll tell you where it is. It's right here. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, 1971. This is a reissue, Earmark, as you can see up here. This is the Earmark label. Famous Italian label. Everything's remastered, and it comes with like all the original shit. So this comes with a rare poster. You can never find the poster. It's because people put it on their wall. It's impossible to find. It's them standing in a grove. I don't want to pull it out, but it's just cool of them like standing in the woods and being creepy and pagan or whatever. This album is fucking incredible. I mean, we were just talking about creating your own template and your own sound. And you know what it takes to do that? Courage. A lot of courage and faith in your own abilities and what you're doing, and faith in your vision. And we're surrounded by music of people that had vision and the courage to embrace that vision and to create that vision. And this is one of them, man. I mean, the sound, they're writing, the first album and the second album that were both dropped in 1970. They're just continuing on with that mammoth and monolithic sound. It just gets heavier. And in a wild way, this is like, I think it might be their shortest album. I mean, it has fucking Sweet Leaf on it that starts off with the Ozzy like coughing into the microphone from smoking weed, the Sweet Leaf. And I mean, it's crushing. The album is crushing. And my personal favorite, Into the Void. It's just all the elements are there. they're, like I said, it's just creating their own sound, their own template, creating, using their own sonic wizardry, casting their spells to create their own sound, and in the meantime, creating a new the new evolution, the proto metal, the proto doom that influenced the legions and a generation of musicians. Um, like I said, what more could be said? That you know, Iommi is the fucking riff master, and you know, Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, is screeching into the microphone. Geese on bass, Bill Ward on drums, as an incredible unit, creating an amazing and unique and terrifying sound. Futuristic. This music is futuristic. This music is for the future. Heavy as shit, wild, chaotic, unpredictable. I mean, and embryo. I mean, there's your beautiful quietude, your song, you know, where he's just, it's um it's a masterpiece.
It was
It's a
definitely
sonic masterpiece.
definitely ahead of its time.
Light years, man. Yes, sir. Light years ahead of its time. A sonic masterpiece. Um, what more can be said about that album? Sonic wizardry, man. Sonic wizardry. And I have to follow that up with another one that is just as titanic and just as powerful. And that's why I put them together. Everyone is, where is this album? I haven't seen it so far on the list. Has he lost his fucking mind? Um, the answer is no. Look no further, fret no further. It is here, and this is the album you're looking for. Do you know what album it is, Steve?
Zeppelin.
Which one?
Zeppelin would have been 3, would it?
No, I did that one last year.
Oh, Zeppelin 4 then.
You are correct.
If it keeps on raining, that bit's gonna break.
Zeppelin 4, sometimes called Volume 4, sometimes called Zoso because of the symbols on the inside. Just as powerful and enigmatic as it always was. The quest for enlightenment. We can talk about that sometime. This album I could probably talk about itself for an hour, and I could talk about Mastered Reality for an hour in itself. Just I it's pure magic, sonic magic. I mean, look at the balls. They were one of the few bands that had absolute control over their music and their vision and their mission. And can you imagine selling an album that, I mean, it has it, uh, actually it doesn't have it on the side. I thought it did. There's no band name on this thing. There's no band. It doesn't say Led Zeppelin. It doesn't say Zeppelin. It doesn't say Volume. It doesn't say anything. It's just, can you imagine that? With what the manager, what the label said?
Does it say it on the spine though?
Doesn't even say it on the spine. So when you bought it, it came, the cellophane would say it. Like it was sealed and it would say Zeppelin, blah, 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 blah. But when you took it off, just the testament, you're holding the power of the album in your hand. I can't claim to understand this album cover at all. I don't, you know, I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's just one of these. It's a freak of nature. It's a fucking freak of nature. Um, every song, a fucking masterpiece. Um, I've had many powerful, um, you know, just powerful interactions with this album. just the music, just being at parties, beach parties, and this album comes on, and then it's like the soundtrack to your life, almost, to people's lives. Like all this music is a soundtrack to your life. This album in particular arguably has one of the most famous rock songs of all time, Stairway to Heaven, along with Hotel California, obviously. This is considered considered arguably the greatest or the most prolific or ubiquitous song on the radio, and rightfully so. Um, it's just this music is this album is like in people's DNA now. This has become a part of the collective consciousness. This album, the music on it, like a lot of the stuff, the Sabbath, and for me, Rush, but this album in particular, along with the Jimmy and the Jim Morrison and the Janis, that's all become a part of the collective consciousness. But this album in particular is even more so. People grew up with this album. It is when you think of this album, you think of like where you were when you heard it, or what party you were at when this album was being played in the background. It's real magic. And I know that Jimmy Page would be happy to hear me say this, and I'm not bullshitting when I say this, but there's real magic on this album. They're like, I'm sure that he casted some spells on this album or on the music, or when he was in the studio, or cast a spell onto his guitar, and I'm not even kidding. I'm being absolutely 100% serious that there was magic involved in making this album. I think with all of Zeppelin albums, to be honest, but when whatever spell he cast on this, he was channeling something very powerful and benevolent, because there's some very powerful, benevolent sonic wizardry and magic on this album. It was actually a gift by my uncle here. You can see if you can see it there, that's me, and my crazy uncle Melt, he was also a Jesus freak, and he was when he passed away, I inherited his entire record collection, and this is one of his personal records. So thank you, Uncle Melt and the Great Gig in the Sky, for giving me these records, these sonic masterpieces. And yeah, what more can you say to that? I mean, that's it. That is my pick for 1971, my friend. Number one, tied with Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, and Led Zeppelin, Volume 4 / Zoso, arguably one of the most influential, greatest rock albums of all time. It couldn't be anything less. It couldn't be anything else. And so that's it for me. That's my pick. What do you say? What about you?
Well, yep, I've left my best to last because I've basically just done my albums in alphabetical order. But the number 10, or the 10th album that I'll be reviewing, was my number one album of 2021. And that was, of course, Pizza Death with their debut album Slice of Death. And joining us is none other than Pat Simpkin from Pizza Death. How you doing, mate?
It's Dave. Thanks for having me.
That's cool. And I know you are familiar with the movie Spaceballs because you sampled the great Pizza the Hut on the album. But for me, this album was a bit like the scene in Spaceballs where they had the breakthrough in home cinema, where the movie was out before it was made, because you guys released a demo well before you actually recorded the album. And I heard the demo and saw your first show, and I was like, these guys are going to have the number one album, and it's not even recorded yet. So can you tell us about how the band got together and how you put together that demo?
It's very much a lockdown band. Like the demo, I recorded that entirely by myself because we couldn't get into the same room. So if you listen closely, the solos are terrible because I can't play guitar very well. But we just had to just get it done. Like, we couldn't have anyone around that whole time. So yeah, it was very much like we're gonna do this thing, but we just got to get in the same room. And the lockdown made that pretty hard. So we were sort of sitting on the idea for a while, and then yeah, put the demo out as quick as we could, and then yeah, just kept writing, and then eventually when we could start playing, it yeah, we sort of hit the ground running, and yeah, it was great that you were able to see our first show. I think it was with Sanctioned at the Bendigo, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show. Yeah.
And so with that recording, was that all electronic drums, or did you?
The demo, yeah, is all electronic drums. Yeah, I just programmed that. Yeah, it wasn't even possible to go to like a rehearsal room to record drums at that time. Like, you remember the lockdown rules were so strict in Melbourne, and it's sort of like, thinking about it now, it's like, did that even really happen? It was just such a weird period of time where everyone was
For
just sort of
everybody.
waiting for it to be over. And yeah, so I'm glad we got something out of it. I think the fact that we were locked inside our house, we kind of got a bit loopy, and I think you kind of got to be a bit loopy to come up with a band like Pizza Death, because it's pretty fucking ridiculous. But it's the joke that won't die, and we'll keep playing it as long as people want to hear it. So yeah, we're having a great time with it.
Well, let me ask you real quick, Pat. So is this your first band, or are you in other bands as well?
And we've all sort of been in different bands over the years. Usually, yeah, different punk and hardcore metal bands and whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, we just happened to get together with this one, and we'd been friends for ages, and we're just like, let's just give this a go and see how it goes. We actually
Cool.
intended to only play one or two shows, but we got such a good reception. We're like, all right, let's do an album and go for it.
Mm.
And one of those bands was, of course, Hailgun. Did you guys record anything, or is there anything floating about the web? Because I didn't stumble across anything. It's not
Yeah.
the type of name that you can find easily.
Yes, it's pre-Spotify, so you'd have to go to Bandcamp. It's Hailgun, one word. So yeah, me and the drummer from Pizza Death were in Hailgun with our friend Smalley, and yeah, we were together for maybe 5 years. Put out a couple of albums, a couple of EPs, and toured Europe a couple of times. Yeah, that was a fun band, like fast early '80s hardcore sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I think we might maybe even do a reunion show at some point. There's been sort of a few people asking, so watch this space. I'll let you know if we do, Steve.
Cool, because I understand Tim, your drummer, had a serious accident a number of years ago when he was in Hailgun. I think it was his ankle, and the doctors
Yeah.
basically said, "You'll never play drums again." He's like, "Fuck that! I'm going to play drums."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Tim does rock climbing as a hobby, and just one day he let off the slack too quick and landed too hard on his foot and basically shattered it to dust almost, like broke it as good as you can. And yeah, the doctors didn't give him a good diagnosis, and yeah, but through rehab and whatever, he's back to where he was before. But it was a long journey for him, and I think it still does give him trouble, but he can play drums, so that's the main thing.
And was it his right foot? Because I noticed when he plays, he
No.
pretty much just uses his right foot, not his left foot. So it was actually the important
Yeah.
foot that.
I know, and Tim's right foot is so busy because he refuses to use a double kick, which I am all for. But I mean, it doesn't mean he's going to have a lot of work. But yeah, it seems to be holding up fine. We recorded drums actually for our next album last weekend, and he smashed through them. So I think he's back to full form.
And so with Slice of Death, before we talk new album, whereabouts you guys record that?
So we did the drums at Three Phase in Brunswick with our mate Matteo, and then we actually recorded everything else here at my house, all the guitars and bass and everything. Yeah, because I have a history and audio history, so it's like, well, let's just do it in our own time. Yeah, have fun with it, not get too rushed, and not have to deal with the stress of like a studio time and having to worry about hitting the deadline. It's just like, we'll get it done, we'll get it done. It's a good way to do it. Should be
I
fun.
happen to have it right here.
Oh, nice.
It was given to me by Steve Oz. He's such a huge fan. He's trying to spread the word of Pizza Death. Because when he first said it, he has like such a thick Australian accent. It sounded like pizza dick to me. I was like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. But anyway, he's spreading the word of pizza death. I have it here. It's super cool looking.
Thank you.
Is there like do you have a favorite track or a couple of favorite tracks on here?
Oh, not really. I'm pretty happy with the whole thing. Like we wrote heaps of songs for it. Like we probably had twice as many songs as could fit on there. So we're just like, let's just make every song a banger. And I'm pretty happy with it all. Like previous bands, there's always like one or two songs you're like, oh, that's not quite as good as the rest. But nah, I'm stoked with it.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
I do have something to show you guys. My wonderful wife actually bought me the original painting of that cover.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's from Ante Balzakov.
So a local guy?
But check out this. Acrylic paint.
Is he a local guy?
No, he's actually based in Ireland.
Ireland, okay.
Yeah, but he does so many great cover art. I can't believe he worked with us, to be honest. He's also doing the cover for our album as well.
And so,
right, well,
I was going to say,
that pizza death is like kind of reminds, there's been there were several kind of joke thrash metal bands in the 80s, and obviously like the biggest one is SOD.
100%.
So
yeah.
It kind of has that vibe to it. And, the funny I was going to tell you is that I was a delivery pizza kid. Yeah, I delivered pizzas when I was a kid, and in the States it was Domino's Pizza. I know every place has their own pizza joints or whatever.
Yeah.
But back when I was delivering pizza, they had a rule, like their whole law, like you had to deliver your pizza under 30 minutes, otherwise the pizza was free.
That's right.
You guys write a song about the delivery guy like running people over, and all that shit really happened. People got killed, and there were class action lawsuits and all kinds of crazy shit.
Crazy.
And after all, they were like, okay, well, you don't need your pizza in 30 minutes. People were like running everybody over for it. So I just wanted to put that in there. I thought that was kind of a funny anecdote, but
that's so funny.
Songs are funny, so
it's a bit like Death Race 2000, was it? If you've seen that.
But with pizza.
Call it Pizza Race 2000.
There's a song in that.
Well, speaking of the songs, because obviously they're all sort of pizza based, or you do stray, you do push yourselves occasionally, like sing about garlic bread and whatnot. But is it something that you come up with an idea and you share with the guys, or you joke around? Like how do you guys come up with those concepts?
Yeah, so most of the song ideas usually come from just a stupid pun or a stupid idea, and we sort of will mill on that for a bit and come up with sort of the hook and then build the riffs around that. It's it's one of those things. Sometimes I take a step back and it's like, this is so ridiculous, but I'm just like, it's fun for me and people like it, so yeah, why not? We actually came up with the name Pizza Death first, and we're like, that's a pretty cool name, and then sort of work backwards from that. Like, I guess pizza and death, just put them together. There's sort of something in that. So
some of them may be a little bit cryptic to understand the references, but I understand Pizza Face Hugger. That's an Alien reference. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I got that one right away, man. That's
nice.
my favorite one.
Awesome. It's probably one of my faves too. We got a sample of Alien in there as well beforehand.
and killer. How about Reanimated Corpses made from uneaten pizza crust? What was that reference?
That was, I think I just watched the movie Hellraiser, and it's not exactly like that, but I'm not sure if you've seen it for a while, but when I think the character's name's Frank, and he sort of like absorbs the blood from the floor, and he sort of like assembles himself back into a being from like a corpse. And I was just like, well, I guess if you had all your pizza crusts everywhere, and they I don't know where these ideas
And how about nuclear family sized?
I just thought, nuclear family yeah, it's just like I sometimes try and take like a a phrase like nuclear family and then just add another word to it and see if it could sort of change the meaning of it. And it was just like, yeah, obviously nuclear family has nothing to do with a pizza with radioactive cheese, but it's just like you just sort of push it to that next level and it can become something else and just get ridiculous with it and keep pushing the boundaries, I guess.
And of course, by trade, you're a graphics designer, so you guys have got some pretty cool videos. I think that one you grabbed some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle footage, which seemed to be actually perfect for that song.
Yes, yes. I feel like they're our spirit animals, the Ninja Turtles.
And obviously, being a new band and a local band, indie band, it's hard to get across to people. So, but I've noticed over the past year or so, at least locally, there's definitely a following growing, online presence. How do you try to attract new fans? Because obviously, with a zillion bands out there, it's hard to catch people's attention.
Yeah, it really is. So I guess yeah, we've always worked like because a lot of when we started the band, we didn't have the option to play a lot of gigs, so we just kind of went ridiculous with the social media stuff, and it kind of the reach of the internet is crazy. Like, yeah, we didn't even send it to people across the seas overseas, but yeah, before we know it, there's people from like America and Europe getting in touch with us, and yeah, we have a distro over in the States now as well. And so a lot of that was pretty organic, them getting in touch with us type of thing. It's yeah, it's so great about like how far your music can spread these days. And there's so many people who, find a band and then tell their friends about it. And it can grow so organically, sort of like it did back in the day a little bit, but word of mouth is not side by side anymore. It's like across the other side of the world. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, I was going to say the guys from Municipal Waste, they're kind of local. They're from Richmond, 2 hours
Yeah.
south of DC here. And
Yeah.
this is totally up their ballpark. They love this kind of shit. So you
Nice.
reach out to them if you haven't already.
We
You should
should.
reach
Yeah.
out to them, and just have them check it out. I'm sure they'd love it. They love they're old school thrash guys, and they
Yeah.
just love this kind of shit. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Nice. We should. Yeah. Definitely.
And I can't remember the channel on YouTube, but you guys got referenced like in the first 30 seconds. You might remember it. A guy who does videos on music and stuff like that, and it's funny hearing Pizza Death, and it was like 500,000 views or something crazy. So, if you know who that was, can you tell us how you lined that up?
He actually, how did we even find that? He found us. So I think the way that video worked, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he basically put the call out to his fans and was like, I want to get into metal. What are some good sort of bands to give me an idea of the genre and that kind of thing. And so people actually told him the bands he should check out. And yeah, we were kind of referenced as like a joke band, but I don't know. I don't think he hated us, so that was good. But I think like that's kind of the beauty of the novelty is like sometimes maybe it's a bit silly or whatever, but it's sort of it gets people's attention, and it's sort of we like to think we trick them into like, oh, actually this band's pretty decent, and like people will stick around. So reel them in with the novelty, and then keep them with the riffs.
Sure. It could also launch you into, you could have like a side project, goof band, and then like transform this into like a thrash band.
Yes.
Take the same members and, kind of SOD Anthrax-ish where they had the crossover the different members in both bands.
Yeah.
You guys could totally do that.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I know Tim, your guitarist, is quite active in other bands. And Kane as well, playing with Wolfpack. Are you involved with anything else, or Pizza Death is the main thing these days?
Just Pizza Death at the moment. Yeah. It keeps me pretty busy. Like, so Kane and I are always working on like social media stuff or little videos and that kind of thing. It's yeah, it's great because there's always stuff you can do, and like we make our own video clips and stuff and record ourselves. So it's sort of, yeah, it's great because it keeps us busy. It keeps us out of trouble.
And the funny thing is, you guys have actually played 2 pizzerias,
Yes, I
which
want
is
to
pretty cool.
preach that.
So
Free pizza.
Yes, just pay us some pizza. Cut out the middleman.
so, yeah, so tell us about because obviously I made it to the local one at Thin Slizzy, but you guys went to Sydney to play at Frankie's Pizza. Can you tell us about that gig?
Yeah, so in our previous bands we played at Frankie's, and it's always been an institution, and I think it's just closed or just about to close. And we sort of heard it was going to close, and we have to play Frankie's before it closes. It just has to be done. So yeah, we just reached out to them, and they put us on a show, and it's a pretty good turnout. And I wish we could play there again because it was one of my favorite venues in Australia. Like, yeah, such a great vibe and great pizza and pinball machines and all the rest. And yeah, but yeah, we really lost a really special place. So I'm not sure if those guys are planning on opening a similar thing elsewhere in Sydney, but yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that.
I was gonna say, they're not doing it this year. The Maryland Death Fest, it's an annual event. It's a huge deal,
Yeah.
especially because over here in the States, we don't get a whole lot of those kinds of events. But, I'm in DC, so I'm about 40 minutes away or whatever. But you should reach out to those guys. It looks like they are going to be doing it in 24. So
Oh,
maybe you could
cool.
reach out to them and just say, "Hey, this is my band," and because
Yeah,
they like to have old school cats and new bands and new blood, and so it couldn't hurt to maybe reach out to them.
for sure. Yeah, I think so. We're going to Europe next year, and we're talking about potentially the States the year afterwards. So yeah, a great festival like Maryland would be fucking awesome to get on. So yeah, it's a great call, Scar.
Sure, man.
And apart from Sydney, you've also played Queensland. And so, what was the reception like there? Like, were there Piece of Death fans there, or was it sort of like a new crowd? How was the reception?
I reckon that show in Brisbane at King Lear's Throne might have been our funnest show yet. It's quite a small, narrow show, so it was very intimate, and yeah, it was a sold out gig, and people got right into it, and we had pizza delivered during the set and stuff, so it was just like pizza boxes everywhere, garlic
Oh,
bread,
nice.
whatever. And yeah, it was a really fun show. We've already booked another show up there early next year, so we'll be heading back up to play King Lear's. That's yeah, probably one of our favorites in Australia at the moment.
And one of the traditions, growing traditions with the band on the live scene is your smashing of the pineapple. Um, so was that just you did it once and you thought, oh yeah, this is fun, I'll do that again. This is very punk. Is it now just part of every show?
It depends. Some venues don't like it because it gets shit everywhere. So it's funny. It started as I would just hold the pineapple the first few times I tried doing it, and then during when things started to open back up, there's a lot of gigs getting cancelled. So I purchased a pineapple and I had it sitting in my room for like 3 or 4 weeks. And so when I went to use it, it was quite squishy. And so during the set, I was singing the song and just sort of slowly squishing it and squishing, and it just like broke by the end of the song. I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. And so from then on, I tried doing that a few more times, but it's pretty gross. It's like a month-old pineapple, and it doesn't smell that fresh. And we actually got it in one of the fold-back speakers one time, and so I was like, maybe just a fresh pineapple. That's all I need. They break pretty easily on the ground. But yeah, as long as the venue is going to be okay. I actually have a little brush and pan that I bring to our shows now to do a little cleanup afterwards. I don't want to be that guy.
And some of the other stage props, because just show by show, you seem to be introducing stuff. Yeah, is that just ideas you come up with, or other guys in the band? And do you have any favorite props that you pull out?
Yeah, it's sort of a lot of the time it'll be like sort of late night scrolling through eBay type of thing and just seeing what's available. And actually, I've just created a new prop for Pizza Face Hugger. It's a face hugger that I've spray painted yellow and stuck all these pepperonis on it. So we're going to use that at our next show.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yes.
And so does any plans for like a Slice Zilla action figure or anything like that? Because I know you do have a 3D printer.
I would love to do that. That's a pretty great idea, actually. I'll let you know if you end up doing that. A lot of the time, we have crazy ideas for merch, and like we'll look into costs and that kind of thing. And like we made like clocks and umbrellas and all sorts of stupid shit during lockdown. Just like we're just trying to get a new band out there and we can't play shows. So a lot of the time we'll be like, all right, maybe we'll make one or two if it's feasible. But yeah, a lot of stuff is sort of like bigger runs. But a 3D printed Slicilla action figure would be pretty awesome. I could probably make it through. Yeah, I could make the 3D model for that. Yes, I'm gonna look into that, Steve. Fucking
You
great.
know, I was thinking I'm just having a brainstorm here. So, do you guys have a mascot yet? Is this your mascot?
No, it's probably more Dougie. The you might not be familiar with Dougie Skull. In the '90s in Australia, we had a pizza boy who did all of the Pizza Hut ads, and his name was Dougie, and like everybody loved him. He's just like a fresh-faced, relatable kid to like as a young kid in Australia, like the Pizza Hut ads would come on and Dougie'd be on and be like, "Hey, Dougie's on," and everyone would get like come and watch the ads and stuff, and like for us, it's a big nostalgia thing. So yeah, it was kind of like when we started the band, we're like, let's sort of make it pizza, but add a bit of an Australian touch to it. And so, yeah, we kind of a lot of the time on social media talk as if we were Dougie, even though obviously none of us are. But
Okay, so so Dougie is the mascot then.
yes, yes, he is.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say you could call this guy Pete-Zilla, like because he looks like Godzilla.
Yes.
And so I remember on the demo, all the band members were named Dougie. Was there any temptation to have stage names or anything like that?
It is something we talked about. Like from early on, we were like, let's just be the guar of pizza and let's sort of try and lead into that ridiculous kind of
Nice.
like really go all out and whatever. But we're sort of not big personalities like that. Like we're just regular guys. So if anything, we kind of like are deliberately like on the album, we don't even have our last names on there. It's just our first name. So we're sort of deliberately just being like regular dudes. We were like, oh, it would be cool to have like ridiculous names, like be from other planets or whatever. But it's like it's not really us. We're just guys playing music. So that's where we're sort of like hide behind Dougie is like he's like the front of the band and we just kind of do his bidding as he commands.
Hmm,
And I
cool.
remember one of your early shows, you had a mate named Will who was doing backflips and whatnot at the show.
Yes.
Was that just too crazy? He hasn't been invited back, or uh,
We should get Will back actually. Yeah, we just kind of we wanted someone to deliver. We had some pizzas come from Domino's and something, and we're just like we have a spare pizza boy outfit, and we're just basically like who wants to deliver these during our set, and we'll put up his hand, and he put on such a stage show. He's like walking across the bar and stuff, and like yeah, handing him out to everybody, and yeah, Will's great. We should definitely get him to do that again because yeah, he does steal the show.
and I know you're obviously a big fan of Municipal Waste, but who are the other bands that sort of influenced the Pizza Death sound?
It sort of changes. Like, so we grew up on like punk and hardcore and a lot of '80s stuff, crossover and thrash, and so we just sort of yeah threw it all together. Just we like fast, short songs, and so yeah, I guess we grew up listening to bands like Slayer and Nuclear Assault and like SOD and those kind of bands, and a lot of early '80s hardcore like Minor Threat and Bad Brains and that kind of thing. So we definitely have older influences, and then as we kind of the ball started to roll, I guess yeah, we'd always listen to like modern bands like Gamma Bomb and Insanity Alert and Municipal Waste, Iron Reagan, and all of those. It's really exciting the amount of bands playing old school style genres without like a modern twist, because usually the modern twist is kind of what ruins it, but it's very much a flashback to the genres of back in the day when it was like yeah just raw energy and like there's no money in a lot of it, so people are just doing what they want and it's exciting and fast. And yeah, I think it's really exciting time for this style of music. It's really got a real boom at the moment.
With the
Well, like
boom,
you guys in Stalker.
Oh, Stalker are great, yeah,
Yeah.
from New Zealand.
when you say boom, because
We had them on the show recently, and
Oh, awesome.
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
when you say boom, I'm curious because like when I heard the demo, I was excited because there were like for me there's a dearth of crossover thrash. So are there any sort of
Yeah.
modern bands or current bands that, stood out for you?
I guess like yeah, now that you mentioned it, it is probably more of a thrash. There's like definitely a thrash resurgence in Europe and the States and a little bit in Australia. Crossover, there's still a bit of a gap, I guess. It's also I guess it's more of an underground genre. Like it's never really got this
DRI.
DRI always, yes. But there's not heaps like yeah, the SOD DRI is sort of like the main ones, but a lot of the other ones, like bands considered crossover, are a lot more kind of thrash. Like a lot of people say Municipal Waste is crossover, and I guess they are, but they're not. They're more in the metal camp than the punk hardcore camp. So yeah, there should be more crossover, but I'm not sure why there's not because we fucking love it.
So bad, Indiana! The pirates run away! 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 Ugh. You are the bad! 30 minutes over! You like the back! 30 minutes all day! Ugh. Thank you guys so much. You guys are fucking awesome.
And welcome back to this bumper episode of The Realm. I hope you enjoyed the best of 1971 and 2021 and that interview with Pat from Pizza Death. But we've just got a little bit more before we finish off because I know, Skull, you've got a couple other releases you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, there was a last couple of things, honorable mentions. I wanted, since it's the holidays, I wanted to mention Cheech and Chong, Santa Claus and His Old Lady. It's about Santa Claus smoking weed, snorting coke, flying around the world, giving kids presents, and it's what better than to listen to this during Christmas time. Cheech and Chong, your favorite, ragamuffins and street bums or whatever they are, smoking weed and hanging out with Santa Claus. So it's the Christmas time, and I figured that I would bring that out. The other thing is, I try to do one album every year before it was BOC, The Symbol Remains in 2020. And this one is, I try to pick one from the previous year. I don't normally do albums after 2000, but there are some bands, of course, and some bands that really inspire me that I really like that I'm still follow, or bands that are really awesome. It's Joe Hasselvander from Pentagram and Raven, also Black Manta, and he just released a new album last year called The Hounds of Hasselvander, Another Dose of Life. Very doomy. There's some great Pentagram vibes on here. Soulless Eyes, Live Your Lie, Room 38. Those are my favorites. There's some really great stuff on here. Highly recommend it. Buy it, put it in your stocking at Christmas time. And love Joe. Always, want to promote his music. He's a great guy. And he's living the music, man. Always there to spread the word. And so I highly recommend this. This is my pick for 2021. Great, legit Doom from one of the godfathers of Doom here. The Hounds of Hasselvander, Another Dose of Life. Check it out. Highly recommended. And So that's how that's that's how we'll end it there, brother. And all I have to say is remember, look to the stars, carry that torch of enlightenment, and strive to be a disciple of rock and roll and the Brotherhood of Orpheus. Peace. I'm exhausted.
I know it's
How
been a
long
long
is
one.
it? Is this thing going to be like 2 hours
It's
long?
going to be over 2 hours. Yeah, it's going to be over 2 hours. It's going to be epic.
Holy shit.